What's going on YouTube? Uberman here. Today, I don't know how long this video is going to be. In fact, I don't really care. This is going to be a very personal vlog to me. I don't think many of you, there may be a few of you that know me personally. You know what I've been through, you know where I come from. But I think the majority of you have no idea who this Uberman guy is. Start out by telling you, my name is Randy Shear. It's always been my name, never used any aliases. I decided today to, and I know the colors are off on here. I don't care, to be quite honest with you. This is going to be a pretty detailed and raw vlog, and at the end of the video, I guess I'll probably explain why I'm sharing it with you. But I think more than anything, I want the people that make my life possible the way it is to know who I am. So I'm going to try to keep this relatively short, but I'm going to start by saying my life started out as far back as I can remember as a middle class. I'm just your average kid. You know, life was good. I had a mom, I had a dad. We're married, middle class. Dad is Air Force. Mom was a stay-at-home mom. You know, the typical all-American family. You know, the things that dreams are made of. Well, it didn't last long. By the time I was 5, maybe 6 at the oldest, my parents were divorced. Before the divorce, I was taken away by DHS because my dad was very abusive. I remember one of my very first memories is actually of him beating me in the hallway and throwing me across from one side of the hall all the way down the other. He would come home from a bad day's work, and you know, this is not a, oh, you poor thing, don't feel sorry for me, all right? I used the things I've been through in life to grow and to build the man I am today out of. Don't feel sorry for me. Some of this stuff does still hurt. You know, it still hurts to talk about some of this stuff, but I've grown and I've really done my best to move past it. So, you know, one of my first memories is my dad, like, knocking the holy hell out of me. And he was a type, you know, he'd have a bad day at work. You know, I think this may be more normal for people from my generation. I was born in 1980. Dad comes home from a bad day, finds one thing to get pissed off about, and off comes the belt. I know some of you remember the belt, right? Off comes the belt. He'd snap it too, you know, pop, pop. And then he didn't aim for my ass. He'd hit whatever he could, all right? One time, he sent me to school with a black eye. Now, my dad hated me lying. That was his pet peeve. And this is the worst thing you could do to that man was lie. Worse than that is if you tell the truth and he suspects it to be a lie, it is a lie, and you're going to get beat for that anyway. So really confuses a young mind. It really warps things. And for a while in my teenage years and early 20s, I was a very different man from who I am today. I was a real troublemaker, and I was a very violent person, even towards women. I'm ashamed of who I was, but that is part of how I became who I am today. And I've done my best to apologize and make amends to the people I've hurt as I was going through what I guess I call growing pains. I didn't know who I was going to be because my mind had been so warped as a child. And I'm not blaming. This is another thing. I hate people that blame their parents for their actions. My parents did not cause me to hit people. My parents did not cause me to be violent. All right? It was a choice. It was a conscious decision that I made until I ended up in some trouble of my own and ended up getting classes for domestic violence. And those classes changed my life at the YWCA or YMCA. I don't remember. It's been many years ago, but I learned a lot from those classes, and it changed my entire life. But anyway, so my dad hit me, and it was because I had lied. And he blacked my eye. So I went to school with a black eye. My teacher asked me, "What happened to your eye?" Not wanting to get beaten for lying, I tell my teacher, "Oh, my dad punched me in the eye for lying." Well, let me tell you what happened next. DHS shows up while I'm at my grandma's house, and they take me. And they put me in a shelter with, God, I mean, keep in mind, I was 4 or 5. I can't remember if I was in preschool or kindergarten. Let's say kindergarten and say I was 5. So to me, the world was a different place. But it seemed like there were 100 other kids all in one room, and it was just a giant room like a gymnasium full of cots, and you just hear kids screaming and crying. It was a scary experience for me. Obviously, my mom and dad got me back, but later on in life, I find out my dad did not actually want to get me back. My dad told my mother, we can just have another one. So that gives you an idea of where my dad mentally back then was and is currently still at. He's never been right, but I will say my father is brilliant. I will never deny that. I won't try to paint him as a darker person than he truly is, and I will give credit where credit is due. My intellect came from him, and a lot of people think I'm a pretty smart guy until they meet my father. He is an electronic engineer, completed college, was in the Air Force, very, very bright man. He can build anything with his hands and his mind. So I'll give him credit for that. But as a father, he sucked donkey balls, to be quite frank. Really sucked. I had a horrible upbringing by him and a horrible upbringing by my mother. And I'll go ahead and get into that now. And I really don't want this video to go on too long. So I want you guys to know where I came from, because a lot of people seem to have a misconception about me. They think that I've been fed with a silver spoon or something. Let me tell you something. You have no idea the things I've been through, the things I've experienced, and the things I've overcome. And I apologize for my phone. I get brought back from DHS. Dad continues to beat me. He was just, even as a little 5-year-old, he was a terrifying man. I remember riding my bike in the street one day, and he came coming around the corner, and he pulled up in front of me with his car, and like right in front of my bike, and he just started smashing the gas on the engine. Had me in tears. I ran inside just screaming and crying. I remember the day he came home and told my mom he wanted a divorce. He had been cheating on my mother, and he actually got another woman pregnant. And then he blamed the divorce on me, which, as a grown-up and a parent, I can understand that's very detrimental to a child's mental well-being. I remember him coming home, and he blamed bills. He found some bills, and he blamed it on my mom, that she didn't pay some bills. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. Don't know. I was 5. Not my problem. My mom was crying because her marriage was over. She had never had a job before, never even driven a car, didn't hold a driver's license. She didn't know what she was going to do. My dad's money was all that supported us. And that was kind of common back then, too, I believe. I remember my mom just in shambles, just in tears. I remember my dad looking at me, and he just yelled at me, and he kept pointing at me. He's like, look what you did. Look what you did to your mother. You're killing her. Every time you make her cry like this, you kill her because you take a piece of her heart, and she's dying, and you're killing her. He just went on and on. And I remember just breaking down in tears because I thought I was killing my mother. And all the time I was a child, I thought the divorce was my fault too. Nobody told me any different. Not even my mom told me different. Now, back in those days, my mom was my protector. She knew my dad's temper. And in a way, I've always been thankful that she knew when he was going to come home, and she'd have me in a bath, or she'd have me in my room. She'd try to distract him. But then as I got older, I thought, what an asshole she was. She didn't protect me. She kept me imprisoned in that life. She kept me in a house where I could be abused, knowing full well what was going on. She chose that. Well, it is what it is today, I suppose. But that is how I look at it now. I do not look at her as someone that protected me anymore. I see her as a person that should have protected me from him, and she failed to do so. And it wasn't because she had nowhere to go. My grandparents lived right down the street. We could have lived with them at any point in time. She failed. She failed miserably. So, let's move on. Time goes by, even though we obviously lost the house that I was born in and lost everything. Honestly, we lost everything. My dad paid, which was, even though this whole thing was his fault, I think it was really cool and good of him. He supported us. While my mom went and found a job, he put us in a house. He got us all set up. He taught my mom how to drive. He helped her get a car. he did a lot more than I think a lot of men today would have done. And rightfully so. He was cheating and started a family with another woman. I think he could have at least done that. But I will give him props and respect for being a man about it. He made his decision, that was done. He didn't have to take care of us, but he did. Now, with that out of the way, life wasn't too bad. It was just my mom and myself, and I kind of loved it, I loved my mom very, very much, and I enjoyed my time with her. But something happened to me when my dad was out of the picture. I became a hellraiser. I was a very defiant and disobedient child, and I will never try to paint myself as some kind of a great and wonderful child that loved his mom and was mistreated. I was probably the worst child you could imagine. If you can imagine it, I did it. My mom used to go to bed sometimes terrified I was going to kill her. All right? I was a bad, bad child when my dad wasn't around. Now, I don't know why that was. I'm not going to make excuses for myself, but I will say I was a child. I do believe I needed some serious help, and nobody throughout my entire life ever sought that. Moving on, I was a bad child. Moving on from that, we ended up bouncing around till I ended up living with my dad. It was from one place to another, one school to another. Eventually, we were living in a trailer with this lady named Fran, Village Oaks Mobile Home Park. I remember that. She had 2 kids, one named William and one named Danielle. I remember that too. William used to play little games with me, and this is difficult to talk about, but I don't have any family left that I can talk to, and I want my YouTube family to really know and understand where I came from, because this is important. I want you to know that I overcame a lot to get where I am today. So William was a teenage boy, and he liked playing little games with me, secret games that we weren't to talk about. It's just between him and I. He would take me into the bathroom at night, and I'm not going to get into the details. You can understand. Let me say this. Let me say this just to clarify. I was not raped. I was molested. All right. So I don't want people to get the wrong impression. Not that I would be ashamed of it if I was. I was a kid. I didn't know better. And it's just one of those things where I was in a bad situation because of my mom, but at the same time, it could have happened to anybody. You don't expect this type of stuff to happen to your kid. And I didn't tell because I didn't know it was even wrong. I was molested all the time, but I did not tell my mom, so she did not know about it. And I don't blame her for that. Just one of those things that happened to me. All right, so moving on, my mom meets this man, the guy she's still with today. Now, at this time, I might have been, I don't know, 7 or 8. She meets this man. His name's John. They were both working at McDonald's and, fell in love, the whole story. And John was nice. I liked him. I did back in the day. He was real cool. He used to take me out to Taco Bell, and he'd get me my favorite strawberry Fanta drink. I thought he was awesome. Moving forward, my mom moves in with John to this little apartment. And I wasn't so happy about John at this point. In fact, I kind of started hating him because he was taking up all my mom's attention. So I started getting in trouble. I would find his wallet, steal his money. I started shoplifting. I found his porno magazines, and I tore them up. I mean, massive quantities of porno magazines. I tore them all up. I was a complete asshole to that man because I was jealous. Not an excuse. That was just ridiculous. Again, maybe I should have been getting seen by somebody because I needed some help, and I wasn't getting. I didn't know how to deal with the things I was feeling, so I tore shit up. All right, moving on. Things, progress. Probably, honestly, the timeline is so skewed in my brain. I can't tell you how old I was. So let's forget age for a minute. My mom and him and me end up moving into a trailer park called Dimmick Park. Yeah, as I said, I've spent quite a bit of time in mobile homes, okay? Now, this is where things get really rough. John is an alcoholic. Not only is John an alcoholic, he's into cocaine. Weed too, which whatever as far as weed's concerned, but He used to snort coke with his buddies right in front of me. They'd have weed on the table, lines of coke on the table. He was an alcoholic. It almost killed him many times. That's how bad of an alcoholic he was. And he was violent. Now, there was only one time I can remember where he put his hands on me, but he was the type that would put holes in the walls. So no, even if you got to live in a place that had no holes in the walls, it didn't last long, because within 3 or 4 months, there wasn't a wall that didn't have holes through it where my mom would take pictures and try to cover them up with by hanging pictures, right? You'd have a picture 2 inches off the floor because he kicked a hole through something, you know? So I spent a lot of time around drugs when it was involving him. A lot of time around drugs. I saw a lot of stuff happening. I didn't really understand it at the time. But, moving on. Let's move on. This trailer park, we ended up bouncing around from trailer to trailer. And these were not nice trailers, people. I'm talking about trailers probably from the 60s, maybe 70s, early 70s. Old trailers. And I don't remember, I choose not to remember a lot of it. What I do remember is no heat in the winter. I remember fleas. I remember cockroaches. To this day, I can't do roaches. I can't do fleas. It was so bad you'd get out of bed in the wintertime, and as soon as you step onto the floor, your legs would be covered. Almost. I mean, I don't want to over-exaggerate here, but fleas everywhere. Oh, they would be eating you alive. I mean, just eating your legs. It was unbelievable. No heat. Obviously, no air conditioners. We had a thing called a swamp cooler. A big thing full of water and filters that blew humid air into your home, your trailer. That was air conditioning. We had no phone. We had no cable. We didn't even have color TV. No game systems. No cool stuff at all. In fact, barely had food. I remember being hungry a lot. John regularly throughout life quit his job and would sit at home. My mom would have to try to pay everything on her own, while John would be into drugs and alcohol and doing whatever he did. A lot of time we didn't even have water. To flush a toilet, you'd have to go a few trailers down with some 5-gallon buckets, and you'd have to fill them up. Come back, pour them into the bowl, and flush itself. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is I was very poor. For shoes, there were many times I went to school with my mother's shoes on because I didn't have any. Clothes, tattered clothes. I was never made to take baths. I was never made to brush my hair. I went to school with crazy hair, and dirty and smelly, and sometimes wearing my mom's shoes. So needless to say, I didn't fit in at school. I wasn't popular. I didn't do any schoolwork. I decided the only way that I could fit in with my peers was to be a class clown, so I got in a lot of trouble at school. Failed every subject, held back multiple times. It was miserable. It was a miserable childhood. It really was, and we're just getting started. So then, my mom's pregnant with my sister, Jenny, and I'll talk about her in just a minute. I'm going to try to speed things up here. We're already 20 minutes into this. They left me at home alone while they went to go have my sister, which at the time, I guess I didn't realize that was really shitty, but looking back now, it really was. I think what really happened is my mom really stopped caring about me. I do believe that. I believe that she stopped loving me. Sometime between the time my dad and her got divorced and the time she got with John. I truly believe that. I do believe that she stopped loving me because she never showed it anymore. And she kept me in some really bad situations. Really bad. You just don't do that to someone you love. So moving on, my sister's born. Hip hip hooray. I didn't really understand the whole concept of babies or where she came from. I just knew that, my mom left. She came back with a baby. And okay, whatever. It's my sister. Cool. Well, not long after that, I came home from school one day. And they had moved out of the trailer without me. And that's no joke. That's no joke. I came home one day and they were gone. The trailer was empty. Nobody was there. Um, I threw a serious temper tantrum. There was some glass, whatever, laying around. I took it and smashed it into the walls. And about a day went by, and I'm walking barefoot, and I stepped on a chunk of that glass, and it ripped my toe open. No phone. I have a fear of blood. When I see, not other people's, when I see my own blood, I tend to pass out. It's embarrassing, but I had blood clots coming out of my foot from my toe. It was my big toe. It ripped it right at the bottom, just ripped it wide open. I had blood, literally, it makes me ill. Because I could still see it. So I just laid there and bled. And I guess I passed out. I woke up with John there, and he took me back to this new place that we had. This new place didn't have enough room for me. I was given the option to either live in the laundry room. Tiny, tiny laundry room. Literally, the washer and dryer took up the whole thing. So, to sleep, there was also no heat there. I got something on my lip here. No heat, at least not where I was in that part of the room. I would use the dryer for heat. I had to sleep on top of the dryer. Or, alternatively, there was a chicken coop outside that still had chicken shit all over it. Completely open, just with chicken wire. And I actually slept in the chicken coop. I found some paint, and I painted over the chicken shit. And I lived in the chicken coop. I literally slept on top of chicken shit. One night there was this mentally retarded guy that was also a pedophile. Lived right across the street from us. He came up in the middle of the night one night. Opened the door. Came into the chicken coop and proceeded to touch me, and in that weird voice he has like, "Doesn't that feel good?" And I'm like, all right, I don't know. I screamed, he got scared, he left. I told my mom about it. She didn't do anything. Yet again, she didn't care. At some point from here, I ended up with my dad. So my dad was doing really well. He was upper middle class, lived in this little town called Choctaw. He had a swimming pool with a diving board and a swirling slide, big house, 2-car garage, land behind him, 2 cars. He was doing great. So I decided I wanted to go live with him. He promised that he'd never hit me or beat me again. And, I did. I went and I lived with him. And for a very short time, things were good. I went from straight F's in school to all A's and B's. And that's where things kind of went downhill. I came home with all A's and 1 B on my report card. I'd made an F on a paper. I hid it. I threw it away because I didn't want my dad to see it because I was still scared of him. Well, I got home. He saw my report card, and he asked me how it was possible I could have a B when I never brought home any grades less than an A. When I admitted I'd thrown the paper away, he started hitting me. And I remember he took my head, and he took it from the back of my head, and went to slam it through the garage door, the inside garage door, the wood door, and he caught my head with his hand, I guess last minute before my head went through it, he caught it, and his hand went through the door with my head cradled in it, and his hand was cut up and bleeding. So he made me clean up the blood, and he cleaned himself up, and he told me when my stepmom got home to tell her that I slipped, and he caught me and prevented my head from going through the door. Again, punish me for lying, but then tell me to lie. His favorite saying was, "Do as I say, not as I do." So anyway, I lived the high life for a while, even though there was occasional getting hit and things like that and getting, whooped with a belt. We had saltwater aquariums. Back then, a 27-inch TV was like a big screen. We had these big Mitsubishi stereo speakers and speaker system. It was just great. It was like living in a way I never lived before. It was even better than when my mom and dad were married. So life was acceptable. And then bankruptcy happened. We lost the house. They lost the cars. And basically lost everything. We ended up moving to this little town called Dale, Oklahoma. In this little house, little tiny house that had 40 acres of land. And that whole story, I'll just sum it up for you. My stepmom went crazy and bought a shit ton of farm animals. We had damn near every animal you could imagine, and it was my responsibility to take care of all of them. All of the rabbits, the ducks, the geese, the guineas, the horses. We had snakes. We raised chickens and ducks and stuff in this little... Anyway, I'm not going to get it. I spent the next several years on a ranch where I learned about digging fence post holes, mending fences, taking care of animals, killing animals, butchering animals for food. Life changed drastically in an instant. In no time flat, we were killing our rabbits and making rabbit stew, killing our chickens to have chicken for dinner. It was a different type of life. And of course, my dad continued being abusive like he always was. I think by this time I had my sister Tammy and my brother Tim, and myself, and then my stepmom and my father. And he was still a very violent, very angry man. I don't remember a whole lot about my brother and sister from back then, because my life was, from that point on, my life, it was shot. I used to hide outside crying, praying to God to please save me, take me out of this. It'd take me back to my mother. The beatings got worse. The threats got worse. He used to threaten to kill me and bury me somewhere out in the field. Or worse, he said he'd just leave me out there for the coyotes to eat. And nobody'd ever find me. Now, during this whole time that I lived with my dad, my mom stopped contacting me. My mom never came and saw me. In fact, I never got to see her. I got so depressed over it, my dad eventually drove me from Dale out to Midwest City to see my mom. She had no phone, so we couldn't call her. We got to where she used to live, and she had moved. And that's how it was. My mom literally abandoned me and started a new family without me. Pretty much, I never really heard from her for several years. Things were really bad. When I tell my kids sometimes, like, you think you've got it bad? You think that because I ground you, life is over? I've lectured him and told him what I went through as a kid. My kids don't even get spanked anymore. It's crazy what they think, how bad they think punishments are today. I would come home from school every day. This was during a time, I think my dad may have lost his job or something, but I would come home from school and he'd be there. As soon as I'd walk up to the door, he'd ask me, "Did you talk in class today?" And every day I did. Every day I said yes. He would put on these gloves. He had these, gloves from when he was in Alaska. He was stationed in Shimmy, Alaska, when he's in the Air Force. And he had these massive gloves, which prevented a lot of bruising. He was very smart, if I never mentioned that. He's very smart. He'd put on these gloves and he'd beat the holy hell out of me. He'd knee me in the stomach, knock the wind out of me. I'd be punched into walls. He'd pull his belt off and whip whatever he needed to whip. But when he was going to punch my face, he always had those gloves on. He wasn't concerned about bruising under the clothes. And and this isn't an exaggeration. This isn't somebody that's exaggerating the truth. This is what happened to me. He beat me every day, every single day. He would make me pull the horse's tail for fun. He would make me stand behind a horse, pull its tail, and it was either get kicked by the horse or my dad beat me. I took my chances on the horse. One time the horse kicked me square in the chest, right here, left a hoof print straight across my chest. I'm damn lucky he didn't break my sternum and kill me. One time when he was beating me, I was paralyzed. He was beating the holy hell out of me, and he flipped me and threw me onto the bed. And when I landed on the bed, I could no longer move. I could scream, I could hear, I could see. I didn't feel any pain. In fact, I felt nothing at all from my neck down. I was completely paralyzed, and he was screaming and screaming at me to get up, and I was crying. I was like, I can't move my body. I can't feel my body. To this day, I do wonder that neck injury that I have. In fact, today I'm in a pretty serious amount of pain. I haven't taken any pills or anything, but today's been a rough day. I do wonder if this neck injury that I have possibly could be from something my father had done. I guess it doesn't really matter, it doesn't change anything. But that's basically what it was, all right? I was beaten regularly. And I'm not the type that uses that term loosely. All right. One day, this all kind of came to a head when he beat me before school. School bus was coming. He didn't like the way I made his peanut butter toast. I didn't do it just right. He threw the plate across the room, glass saucer, it busted across my nose, and I was bleeding, obviously. And as if that wasn't enough, he came up to me and he just started kneeing me repeatedly in the stomach. I mean, like just kneeing me over and over and over until I couldn't breathe anymore and I was on the floor. He left bruises all over me, and I was bleeding. The bus showed up. And I go to run out the door to run to the bus, and he stops me. He's like, "Hey, aren't you going to give your old man a hug?" I still remember he had shaving cream all over his face. He was standing in the bathroom. It's like, you just beat the hell out of me. You want a hug? I went to school. Bus driver knew something was wrong. He turned it into the counselor. Counselor got me. This is hard to talk about. This is the point in my life where things really start. It still hurts. It was the first time I felt like somebody cared. And by the way, my stepmom, he was married to, she never knew anything about this. She was at work. She didn't know he did this stuff. I mean, he would have me cleaning my own blood off the walls before she got home. But all these people came to talk to me at the school. And this is the first time I felt like people really cared about me. And I was scared to talk to them, but they told me, "We'll protect you. We'll put you in a safe place. You'll never have to deal with this again." So I told them everything. I told them about all the years of abuse. And they took a lot of pictures. DHS came and took me again. This time I was in what they called a safe house. Wasn't so safe. I ended up getting into fights with kids there, that were bigger than me, so I was still getting hit. So, hey, fuck DHS and fuck their safe house. Ultimately, the way that went down is DHS wanted me to tell a lie about my dad. They wanted me to say that my dad had sexually abused me or assaulted me or something. I don't remember the specifics, but I remember enough. It had to be sexual in nature, and I wouldn't lie. This made DHS angry, so when we went to court, DHS told the judge that I had told them that my dad had done these things, and that I changed my story and that I'm a liar. My dad won, but the judge did stipulate that I was to go stay with my mother, and she was to never release me back to my father, regardless. All's right with the world, right? Wrong. I think I spent maybe a week or two with my mom before John just couldn't stand me being there. That man hated me. And off to my father I went, even against the judge's orders. Life went back to being hell. Dee finding out, my stepmom, finding out that my dad had been abusing me and my brother too. She divorced him. She filed for divorce. That left my dad with no place to live and a son to beat constantly. So we moved into a small apartment in War Acres. And that's when things got real bad. Summers, I never had a summer. I never had a summer where I got to play with my friends. My summers were spent working with my father or working on that ranch. That's something I wanted to point out. I did not have a childhood. After school, there was no go play with friends. After school was come home, take care of them animals. When I was with my dad living in the apartment, he got home shortly after I'd get off of school, so it was do whatever he told me. But playing, there was almost no playing. There was no catch with my dad or basketball with my father or going and doing fun and creative things. No, it was a fucking nightmare. My childhood was just one long nightmare. And it got so much worse when we lived in this apartment. He got into drugs. He got into crack. Crack was his drug of choice. He also started popping pills. He started running with some questionable females. One time, he left me and with a baby and took off to Mexico to go smuggle Valium. I do remember the name. It was Valium. Somehow, they could take prescriptions down to Mexico and fill them really cheap and bring them back. I don't know how that works, but they smuggled the drugs back. In the meantime, I was left as a child in a house with a baby that I had no idea how to take care of. None. Left me for like 3 days while they were down in Mexico smuggling drugs back to the United States. For those of you that think I grew up with a silver spoon in my mouth. Now, this new woman that he'd really taken a liking to was the one causing all these problems. One day, my dad always made me call women mom. It didn't matter if you knew him for 2 weeks or a month. It was, this is your mom, call her mom. So this one came in the house one day. She was always talking about killing herself. Well, today, she walks up to a picture in the living room, punches it, picks up a shard of glass off the floor, just like crushes it into her hand, stabbed herself right in the face. She fell to the ground and bled out all over the floor. And she did not die, but I'd never seen that much blood before. Just bled everywhere, all over the floor. Cops, paramedics came. And later on, I found in my toy box, my dad had taken all their crack pipes and stuff and threw them in my toy box, so that if the house got searched, it would look like I was smoking crack, I suppose. The beatings got worse as he got more and more angry, and these people that he would hang with and invite over would, take from us, steal from him, screw us over, and that all got taken out on me. And by this time, I'm a teenager. I'll talk about my virginity real quick. At 13 years old, on my 13th birthday, my dad had arranged for an 18-year-old and her sister, a 13-year-old also, to take my virginity. Now, for a lot of you men out there, you're probably sitting there going, hell yeah, boy, you lost your virginity to 2 women at once. Yeah, I did. 2 females, sisters. It's a dream, right? I mean, this is what dreams are made of. It wasn't for me. My dad called me queer over it, told me I was gay. I actually cried because I didn't want to have sex. This 18-year-old, her name was Angie. Her sister's name was Tammy. Angie and Tammy Thornton. I wasn't ready. And I didn't want to. I didn't want to have sex with Angie. Now, Tammy, that may have been something I would have said okay to, but I still wasn't ready. But Angie, I didn't want to. Well, my dad ends up moving, both of them were living in the house, and later on accusations came out that my dad was screwing both of them, and that really hurt him when it came to going to court for his kids, Tammy and Tim. So it was said that he was screwing my girlfriend and her sister. And my girlfriend was actually Angie, the 18-year-old. But I didn't like her. But my dad wanted, I can't explain it. That was my girlfriend. That's who my dad wanted me to be with. And he used to do these weird things with a cup to her, and they would smile and giggle at each other. He used to take his finger and just rub it around the rim of a cup. And she would start giggling, and he would start laughing. And I never understood what that meant. To be quite honest with you, to this day, I still don't know what that means. I don't know what that was. It was something sexual, I'm sure. So, looking back, my dad denied it. He probably did it. Summers were spent going to work with him and doing professional installs for two-way radios on police cars and ambulances and fire trucks and all that other shit. Cleaning. It was hard labor, hard work, out in the sun a lot of times too. Free child labor, I did not have a childhood, and I was made to do things I didn't want to do. I just wasn't ready for sex at 13. But at 13 is when I found, because my girlfriend was 18, I found alcohol, I found cigarettes, found pot, and, I was kind of like, fuck the world, anarchy, all that shit everyone goes through as a teenager. Ran away from home, started getting arrested a lot. That's when I started getting in a lot of trouble with the law. I figured my dad's going to beat me anyway. I don't give a shit, right? It was the only way I could hurt him because I knew financially it put a strain on him. So that's what I did. So anyway, moving on. That's pretty much my childhood summed up. Eventually, I got away from him, and then ended up back with him, and then got away from him again. By the time it was all over, at 15 years old, he had me. He was living with his girlfriend, and he found a house, an abandoned house, that was missing parts of the roof and parts of the walls, and that's where I was living. I was living in an abandoned house. That's no joke. That's no bullshit. Being straight up with you. No heat. No hot water. There was electricity. It was very cold there. It was empty. And that's where I lived. At 15 years old, he made me get a job. I got my first job at Burger King. He took all my paychecks. I didn't get a dime from him. Not even an allowance. Got nothing. He took all my money. We didn't have a car through almost any of the time that I've been talking to you about. From the time he got divorced from my stepmom and we were living separately in an apartment. From that time on, no car. Not for the most part. It was Shoe Leather Express. You walked everywhere. Found a bus station, found a bus stop, jumped on the city bus or whatever to get where you needed to go, and then you walked some more. Didn't matter if it was winter, didn't matter if it was raining, didn't matter if it was 110 degrees in the summer. That's what I went through. And, you know, I fell in love with my job at Burger King because I felt like I had a family. And this is a continuing issue with me, is this feeling of emptiness. This feeling of being alone. And I've been struggling with it my whole life. It's problematic for me. You know, I'm living in this abandoned house. My dad's living it up with some chick in an apartment somewhere. He's taking my paychecks. Eventually I got fed up with it. And eventually I left. I literally started living on the streets. That was a dangerous time. You know, things happen to kids. You know, boys, girls, doesn't matter. Things. There's plenty of grown men out there that, you know, I was never raped or anything. Yet again, some inappropriate things took place. And it's embarrassing to talk about, but I'm not ashamed of it. I don't even know if that makes sense. You know, I did what I did, and I lived, and I'm here today. And today is kind of where I'm going with this whole thing. I've been through a lot of shit, and I've always had this empty feeling inside of me where I'm missing family. I've never had family, not really. Closest I think I ever came was the girl that became my first wife. Her mother treated me more like a mother than anybody ever did. So Vicky Daves, if you see this video, I honestly can't express to you how grateful I am, even though I was a shit of a kid, horrible to your daughter, a fuck up of a husband and a father back then. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you did for me, because I was no good. And anybody that could see me back then knew that, but you saw something in me, and you took me into your home, and you gave me love and food and clothes and, you know, things nobody ever given me before. I can't tell you how thankful I am to you for that. So if you see this video, thank you. Yeah, I had to get that out because that's very important to me. Aside from her, I just never had a family. You know, didn't really know what family was. Family was yelling and violence and anger and hurt and pain and suffering. So we'll jump in to a little bit later. At 16 years old, I went to Job Corp. I got my GED with honors. I'd gotten in some trouble and I had to go to Job Corp. If I'm being quite honest with you, I was going to go to jail otherwise. I'd broken into some cars. I'd stolen stuff from houses. I got into some trouble and I had to go to this Job Corp. So at 16 years old, I got my GED with honors. At 17 years old, I had my driver's license, and I graduated the entire program with a certified nursing assistant license. You know, after that, I ended up getting married to the girl who I'd been with since, I think we got together in like 1994 or 1995. At 18 years old, she was pregnant. She was 17. We got married. And that was my first wife, and I was a horrible father. I was a horrible husband. I wouldn't keep a job. We lived with her mom, the one I just thanked in this video. We lived with her mom and her dad, and I was a complete piece of shit. I hit my ex-wife, and I'm not proud of it, but it's who I was. I've apologized to her, and she, you know, much later in life, you know, divorced and separate, I've talked to her, and she says that she forgives me for who I used to be. I'm thankful for that, because in my opinion, there is no bigger coward, no bigger pussy in the world than a man that hits on his kids or hits on a woman, period. And I definitely got to thank the Y. I don't remember if it was YM or YWCA, but they changed my life with those classes. They truly did. Now, I've never hit my kids. Now, that's never been an issue for me. I've never been violent towards my children, but for whatever reason, I would get violent towards a woman. It was my way of control. Somehow I felt good about the power that I had over these people. And it wasn't just her. It was something I dealt with for a long time. And I'm deeply and truly sorry for the hurt that I inflicted upon everyone involved with that. I was a different person back then. Moving through all that, I want to talk about today. There's a lot more I could talk about, but I want you to know about me, even the dirt. I was a shitty person. I was, and I'm always carrying that guilt around about the things that I've done to people. I don't want anybody to think I forgot. I never forget. It helps me to stay strong. And even at times when I do get angry, like I still get angry, the difference is I learned how to walk away. I learned how to breathe. I learned how to step outside of the situation for a minute. And never let my anger get the better of me. And it hasn't. So with that being said, I want to talk about some things that have happened recently, and then we're going to end this video because we're pushing almost an hour. So any of you that are still watching, I appreciate you taking an hour out of your day to watch this. Recently, my son has been having a lot of problems. He was expelled from school because he threatened to kill people. I found a list. In fact, this office right here, this was his bedroom. And this is hard to talk about. This was my son's bedroom. And he started exhibiting some real violent tendencies. I found a note on his way to school one day. There was a piece of paper. It had a list of people he was going to kill. And it scared me. I went to the school and I turned it in. I'd been having problems out of him before. Already we were having problems. But finding out that your son has created a plan to kill people and bleed them out, find them alone, drag them down a flight of stairs, slit their throat, and bleed them out on the floor. Let me tell you something. I truly hope that none of you ever have to experience what I went through. Now, I've been a single father for a long time. I love my son more than life itself. But when you find out your son, when you've experienced a lack of family like I had, family is everything to you. And you protect it at all costs. And my son was all I had. His mom, baby mama, she's been in and out over all the years. My daughter, she lives down here, then she'll live with me, then her mom takes her back, then she moves back to Indiana and moves back to Oklahoma. I never know where my daughter's at. I don't have much of a bond with her because of her mom. You guys may remember her as baby mama, the lady I got the hell away from several years ago because it was a fucking horrible situation. The one person I've always been able to take care of was my son. My little son, my little D. I've always taken care of him. And when I found out he's thinking about killing people, and he admitted that he was serious, this wasn't a cry for help. He wants to kill people, and more than that, he doesn't want help for it. He ended up having to go be seen. He was inpatient at St. Anthony's. Then he was inpatient at Integris Mental Facility. Then he was inpatient at Cedar Ridge Mental Facility. He spent over 2 months in these facilities. And finally, we got a diagnosis of RAD, which is reactive attachment disorder paired with attention deficit hyperactive disorder, paired with depression, and possibly, they don't know, but borderline personality disorder. Now, as a parent, you think you've been through it all when your son's out there trying to talk about killing people. He talked about raping this girl, too, and killing her. His girlfriend. It was his girlfriend. He was talking about raping and killing her. There is nothing that makes you feel so helpless as when you are a parent and you cannot help your child. He's not into drugs. He doesn't drink. He's a smart kid. But he has a mental problem. He wants to rape people and he wants to kill people. There's nothing I can do. This isn't, hey, let's get you some AA classes. This isn't Narcotics Anonymous. This is out of your control. There's not a fucking thing you can do. So moving on. He showed real progress at the last mental facility, Cedar Ridge. Real progress. Really promising. Because we had this diagnosis that we could work off of. They taught me how to deal with him and his outbursts and his anger, and I did everything they told me. He needed structure, no internet, no video games. I took all of that away. I provided structure, like you wake up at this time in the morning, you go to bed at this time at night, you eat lunch at this time during the day. Did everything they told me. And the day after he got out of Cedar Ridge, I told him to go outside and play. It was very important. His therapist said that he goes outside and interacts with children. I sent him outside to play. My fiance Jessica came home freaking out. She's like, why is he with his mom? His mom, last I knew, had moved to Indiana. Well, she was back. Not only was she back, she had been, I guess, somehow scheming with Daryl. And they got together. Now, he's not supposed to be around his mom. His mom is mentally unstable as well. And I don't say that because, I can't stand his mom. I can't stand her. But the fact is, she is mentally unstable. I've got video of it. All right? She's got real problems. And it's not good for him. I told him to stay away from her. I told her and my sister, because my sister had been talking with her, I told both of them they need to stay away from my son. Because you push him too far, he's going to kill somebody. And I'm not so... if it was... I don't want to say that. I don't want my son to ruin his own life, yet alone take an innocent person's life. Let's say it that way. And when you're playing with a kid's mind that's on the edge, you're asking for trouble. Well, it came to pass my son decided he wanted to kill me. Okay. Now, when the doctor tells you he's capable of homicide, capable of murder, you best listen. So he gave me an ultimatum. He didn't like my rules. He didn't like the structure in this house. He didn't like what the doctors told me to give him. So my sister planted a seed in his brain. She said, go home and just start getting in trouble. Get in so much trouble that your dad doesn't want you anymore, and then tell him I'll take you. I know this because he admitted it to me. So, after putting up with a lot of BS from him, he gave me the ultimatum. He said, I want to live with Jenny. As it turns out, baby mama, his mom, also lives with my sister. With my daughter, who I don't get to see. I've been cut off from her. And I said, hell to the no. His reply was, if you don't let me live with them, I'm going to get arrested. I'm going to get in so much trouble, I will ruin your life. I'll ruin your relationship with Jessica. I'll ruin everything. That paired with the fact he told me that he's been thinking about, he's had thoughts of killing me. I gave up. I gave up and I let him go. And I told my sister, I have all the text messages to back all this up. I told my sister everything about him, how dangerous he is, that he's capable of killing. I told her this is no joke, you're not taking in another fucking pet. She's got a thing about taking in 10 dogs and 5 cats, house smells like piss and urine, fucking disgusting, alright? This isn't a pet. This is a human fucking being. This is my son. This is your nephew. You don't play games with a child's mind. I told her everything. I tried to scare her out of taking him. Didn't affect anything. She took him anyway. I said, okay. I said, I want to pay to adopt him to you. I offered to pay out of my own pocket to adopt him. Why adoption? Because it's what a lawyer advised me. A lawyer told me that unless I adopt him out, whatever he does to get in trouble, whatever happens, if he kills somebody, whatever happens, he's under 18, he's my responsibility. So I told my sister, if you want to screw with his mind and you're pushing him to do this to me, and I'm laying in bed scared he's going to kill me, he can go with you. But you're going to have full responsibility of him because I will adopt him to you. She said that was fine. But yet, I had a lawyer lined up and ready to go. Then suddenly, she disappears. Thanksgiving comes. I tell my son Happy Thanksgiving. And I notice on Facebook and social media, people that are his family have been blocked. And I'm like, why? Losing my voice, sorry. Well, he doesn't want to associate with these people anymore. Then eventually decides he doesn't want to associate with me anymore either. Well, I've got text messages also on my phone still from my sister saying she'd never try to keep him from me, she'd never take him away. And then I'm told that he's made accusations that I have tortured him. Torture. He says that I have tortured him. So a lot of you probably see where this is going. Baby mama, who I've never been able to get away from because she's like a disease that lingers and just follows me around. Baby mama moves in with my sister. Baby mama influences my sister by using her daughter, my daughter, Rebecca. And here's the best part. Now they have my son. So they have like a family unit. You've got my sister, you've got baby mama, you've got the daughter, and you've got the son. Brother and sister, everybody's happy. Not everybody's happy. See, I got engaged very recently. I went out and I got my fiance a pretty nice bridal set. I sent pictures to my son. I thought he'd be excited about us getting married. His mom saw the pictures. All of this started happening after. And I remember not so long ago, year and a half ago, she was outside. We had all gotten together. We're trying to be friendly with one another. That includes my fiance. We're all having a couple drinks. The kids are having a good time. We're all having a great time. April jumps up out of nowhere, baby mama, and screams, "I'm not in love with your dad anymore, kids!" as she's crying, and she pisses herself. And then blames the pissing of herself on my son, saying he pissed when her pants was wet, not his. Now, I hate being a stereotypical guy. It's like, oh, that woman, she just can't get over me. Now, this ain't a good thing. I wish the fuck she would get over me. I really do. She needs to get over me. Because now, this is all what I've come to the conclusion of, to end this video. My sister has my son. She won't let me talk to him. The police won't do anything. Yet. There's a piece of paper that I need before the police will go take him back. Unfortunately, I don't have the paper. So I'm waiting on a judge to get that paper back to me. As soon as I get the paper from the judge, the police said they will go take him back. But here's the other thing. They moved. They didn't tell me where they moved to. So this becomes a much more complicated matter that may end up with me having to get an attorney. You think that's all there is to the story? No. I went to the DHS office, see if they could help. They looked at me politely, very nice people. They said, "Hun, are you aware someone opened a DHS case on you on Thanksgiving?" And I'm like, what? Someone opened a DHS case on me? I've never done anything to my kids. What are you talking about? Well, by this time, my kids don't even live here. I don't have any kids in this house other than my fiance's kid. Oh, my fiance's kid lives here. They tried to open up a DHS. It's not enough that they have both of my kids. It's not enough that they're hiding my kids from me. They're trying to get my fiance's kid taken away. It's still not enough. They have to ruin my life. Didn't work. DHS threw the case out, like, immediately. They said it didn't make it past the phone call. They said it was thrown out. They wouldn't tell us who did it, but let's get real. I got engaged. Suddenly all this stuff starts happening. Baby mama's involved. Thanksgiving, I talked to my son and basically get told to piss off. Thanksgiving also is when someone called in the case on DHS. Now, here's something that didn't even occur to me, because I would never have thought that someone would be trying to extort me or extort money out of me. But here's the thing. Baby mama and I had an agreement. Because I have custody of Daryl, she would never get me for child support on Becky. And because she had Becky, I would never get her for child support on Daryl. So we had an agreement. Child support never occurred to me. Now, when I talked to my sister about taking him, I said, I am not paying child support. Because you put this in his head to do. You made him do this to me. I'm not going to pay for it. I'm not. You want him, you got him, but I'm not paying for it. Well, it just recently occurred to me that since I don't have Daryl anymore, April can file for child support on Becky. Since my sister has Daryl, she can take me to court and file for child support on Daryl. See, they both know that financially, every year I'm doing a little bit better. You know, things are slowly getting better. I've worked really hard to get where I am. And it looks like the greedy bastards want to take my money. It's not enough they took my kids. Not enough they tried to get DHS involved here. But now they want to take my money too. Well, I'm not going to let this happen. I do believe that they've gone behind my back and gotten a lawyer to try to take Daryl from me. When I offered to adopt him to them myself and pay for the whole thing myself, but it wouldn't have included child support. So I think they went behind my back so they can try to get child support from me, because I guess they're that desperate for money. And for me, imagine this. Just to sum up this video, and we're going to end it. I lost my brother this year. Not to death. My brother moved away. And I haven't seen him since. My daughter, April, my daughter with her, she took her and left in the middle of the night, ran off to Indiana. I lost my daughter. My son ended up with a mental illness. He wants to kill people. He's gone, and I haven't seen him. Oh, I've seen him twice since, and since then, like, nothing. I can't talk to him, nothing. They're keeping him from me. So I kind of lost my son this year. My sister, who is doing this to my son, needless to say, I lost her this year. My mother, who I've been trying to get to talk to my sister, maybe try to talk some sense into her. My mother, she won't say shit. My mother is just kind of sitting in the background going, oh, I don't want to get involved. Okay. I lost my entire family. Oh, my dad. I forgot. My dad, some of you may remember, he disappeared one day. Years and years of being in a relationship and having a job and shit. One day he got up and just left. I don't even know where he is. Haven't seen or heard from him since. Managed to get in touch with him one time, and he said, I don't have a son. My dad and I had a very decent relationship. Then one day, he disappeared. Somewhere in Danport or Danville, Illinois. Last I know, Gary Joe Shear, Danville, Illinois is where he was last I know. Shacking up with some lady, some French lady. And why he doesn't have a son anymore, I have no idea. He just disappeared. That's where this Atari came from. That was the computer that he has had since I was a little kid before the divorce with my mother. You know, that's the computer. Those are the keys I used to type on as a kid. To sum up my year, I've lost everybody with the exception of Jessica and her son, Nick. So that's where things are. Now you know who I am. You know where I come from. And hopefully I can be an inspiration to some people. Not because I want to toot my own horn or anything, but I think a lot of people that have been through the things that I've been through, there's only so much people can overcome before they just get broken. And here I am. I have lost pretty much everybody this year. And it's hard, but I'm pushing through it. I'm determined to get through it. And I just wanted to introduce myself to you and let you know who I am, where I come from, what I'm going through right now. Why? I figure you've taken the time to watch my videos all this time. You should know who I am. Part of it's selfish. Part of it is I just don't have anybody to talk to. So I appreciate you taking the time to listen. I'm going to get out of here. I appreciate you watching. Leave your hate comments and love comments below. And until next time, stay safe out there.